Hi everyone and welcome back to the show. Today I'm joined by two incredibly talented and creative minds in the world of interior design, Cesar Conde and Ricardo Velasquez. Cesar was born in Brooklyn and raised in South Florida, where his passion for design quickly took shape. With projects spanning from South Florida to Mexico, Germany, and Colombia, Cesar has built an impressive career blending architecture, culture, and artistry into every space that he touches. Joining him is Ricardo, originally from Guatemala, whose journey began just at 8 years old, studying painting under a renowned artist. His studies took him all the way to Florence, Italy, where he honed his craft in furniture and interior design before bringing his vision to South Florida. Together, they've built Casa Conde, a name that has become synonymous with innovation, elegance, and timeless design. Cesar and Ricardo, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So I'd love to begin first with how you both first met, and it all began with working together.
Right. Well, we met through a common teacher. Cesar graduated from the same school 10 years earlier. And when I graduated, Mr. Bari, who's an Egyptian architect, said, you got to go and talk to Cesar. He's looking for someone.
Yeah, I kept in touch with him over the years after I graduated, and we became friends because he was very inspirational for me when we were going to school. And I always asked him if he could refer anybody when we were growing the business, and that's how we met.
Oh, how great.
Yeah, so we met on a Thursday and started working on next Monday.
Following Monday.
So first job out of college?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How
yeah.
lucky.
Yes.
What a blessing to be able to land. It seems like it's gone pretty well.
Yeah.
Yes, no
Worked
complaints.
out.
So how did you know then in the beginning that your visions creatively were going to be able to blend well together?
Well, I guess you can say that. Like,
I mean,
why did you say
I
yes?
I think we have similar visions. Of course, we sometimes disagree, but that's what makes great teamwork. Ricardo gets more involved in depth with details, and I tend to look more at the general overall scope of work. So I think between having that kind of general view and that detail-oriented view on the other side, it kind of balances out the work that we do.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it's a good balance. I probably make no money if I was working by myself. So we balance each other, the business side, creative. Cesar is it's very practical. I get lost in, like he said, in little details.
Yeah.
So I think it just works.
Yeah?
And
So it becomes kind of like a back and forth, and we find somewhere in the middle,
That's right.
it balances the project out.
Perfect. So
Yeah.
yin to each other's yang.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much.
So here you guys are both very hands-on designers, and you do a lot to explore the areas locally prior to beginning your design. So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, we do a lot of research, not just on the project or the location, but the brand. We do take into consideration a lot the location and try to create a story so that the design has, like a meaningful design or story behind it, and not just trying to create something that looks pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gotta have a good story, a meaning, level of authenticity, respecting everything around the project itself, settings, nature, demographics, whatever you call it. We just kind of really get involved with that, and we also get involved during the construction portion of the project. Very, very much hands-on, full turnkey, we call it. So from conceptual to completion, and every step of the way hands-on.
So what did that look like for the Perry Hotel, both in Key West and in Naples?
So the Perry Hotel in Key West was very interesting because the original location is in Stock Island. It's considered to be kind of like a blue-collar, hard-working area of the Key West area. And we were inspired by the working marinas and the industrial look. That's why you see a lot of concrete and steel elements within the interiors themselves. And then that was really what inspired us and helped us develop that concept first.
And how did that then translate to Naples? Were there any differences, I'm sure?
We wanted to keep the same DNA of the concept, but try to soften it a little bit with different textures, adding a little bit more color to make it fit better in this market.
Absolutely.
Well, with this property being right off of Tamiami, we didn't have the marina experience like we have in Key West or in Stock Island. Here we have the Cocohatchee River, and it translated well. We just needed to bring kind of the West Coast tropical flair that you get when you're here in this special area. So we kind of brought it in the original. It's called the original seed of Key West, and we kind of mixed it with the local elements. So
Nice. I hear that when you were doing some explorations in Key West, there's something funny happened with you and Matt, I believe, and you discovered something off the beaten path. I think you have to tell us about that.
So the very first or second trip, a gentleman that introduced us to Michael Hartman organized the visit, and he said it was very important for us to go because there was an R&D trip for the first Perry Hotel. So we started, obviously, I'll quote Matt, we started by drinking wine at Casa Marina and ended the night playing pool at the local dive bar. So it was a very, very immersive R&D trip for us in Key West.
Sounds like really hard work, too.
A lot of hard work.
So when it comes to the Perry Hotel's brand, how were you able to translate that brand into textures and colors and everything else? How does that work?
I guess, like I said before, like trying to keep the same DNA, exposed concrete columns, concrete floors, reclaimed teak inserts for the floors, but then adding more, vintage floral prints, a little bit more color than what you have in Key West. So yeah, trying to soften the look a little bit, but maintaining the same concept.
A lot of what Ricardo said, but we brought in more of the wood elements, natural textured wood, driftwood feel, being so close to the beautiful beaches here on the West Coast. So we did kind of, like I said before, bring in the original elements of the Perry in Key West, but injected the tropical feel, seashells, sand, textured wood, just palms.
It's beautiful and so interesting too. I can't wait to talk a little bit more about some of the spaces. Like the rooftop in Tigris, like, wow. I remember walking into Tigris for the first time, like, never seen anything like this in Naples. And I heard it's called something with a jewel box, something or other. I don't know, but it's beautiful and super unique. Also, I'm a big fan of the flamingo chairs outside. I took pictures of those and I was like, those are beautiful. So just really great work overall. It's stunning. How about when it comes to any of the particular spaces here, whether it is the rooftop or Tigris, or were there any particular challenging spaces to design?
Well, going back, one thing that we did fail to mention early on is our relationship with Gavin. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here for this podcast, but he was really the kind of the conductor and that organized all of the different parties to make this happen. A lot of people don't realize, but there's a lot of work involved early on when we're developing something from scratch like we did here. And Gavin did a great job keeping all the teams communicating every week, in and out, all the details. And so he really kind of helped us create all of the space planning based on the client's program. And then we kind of jumped in to help develop the all of the details. But to answer your question, the most intricate process was really the rooftop bar. We needed to bring in the element of the views, rooftop pool, the bar. How do we visually anchor the bar by creating a detail over the bar? How do we maximize that experience? The setting itself was amazing, but how do we maximize the experience for the guest coming from the elevator to the bar, through the pool, the views, and then enter the Jewel Box restaurant that was inspired early on during one of those creative meetings with the team and Gavin.
So thanks for mentioning Gavin. Gavin Scarborough couldn't be with us today, but you were describing him, because it's all new to me, as the architect is kind of like the conductor.
Yes.
So can you share a little bit more about that? Because I'm very interested to learn about that.
Well, Gavin is really the first one to meet this. I'll use this project for example. Gavin was the first one to meet with Mike and Matt, and came to the site, studied everything, and he was the one that really needed to work on the master plan to position the design, or the overall design of the hotel itself based onto the existing lot. Obviously, taking into consideration sunsets and sunrises and the views and all of that. So he kind of started that process. Then we get involved once he's done developing the shell, just the general space planning for everything. We get involved with designing all of the interiors, the ceiling transitions, all of the kind of what we call the furniture, fixture, and equipment layouts and all that. And then he then has to take all of our information and then handle that with mechanical, and then bring in structural to make sure that this 7-story building is going to be here for the next 100 years. So he really is an important part in making sure that all those pieces of the puzzle fit, not just fit, but there's great communication from the very beginning. And on top of all of that I just shared with you, he's got to answer to the clients, make sure that all of their requirements are fulfilled. He's got to tick all the boxes. The program has to be established, make sure that, we get X amount of rooms and X amount of square footage for a restaurant, because we want to sit, X amount of people. So he really did an amazing job just orchestrating all of the different players.
Nice.
And I think it worked so well here because also the relationship we have. We have probably worked on 8, 10 projects with them, and it's really a back and forth collaboration. Like you walk into the 7th floor and it just looks like a nice rooftop bar. Then you go into Tigress, but all the back and forth of floating pavers, drainage, the pool, wind, which is huge, and it was a important factor when we were designing the bar. Like, can we hang this? Can we not hang this? How is the wind gonna affect all that? So yeah, it's a very intense collaboration where you need a very specific type of personality.
So you mentioned hands-on. Gavin is exactly the same way. And one thing is to develop something from scratch and put it on paper. Another thing is to understand what needs to happen to bring it all together. And then there's so many moving parts. You always have to be thinking about how to accomplish a specific design, or how to deal with a specific issue. And that's what it's like. Pick up the phone, call Gavin right away. Gavin, there's something that I thought about. Perfect example is, the rooftop bar looks fantastic, and we understand how everything's coming together. We understand that the mechanical room for the pool is sitting on the level below, but we're at a bar, and when people sit at a bar, they need to drink beer. How are we going to bring the beer to a bar that's outside, and bring the beer lines over from a beer cooler that's sitting X amount of feet away? So these are the type of details, either we bring it above or we bring it below. So that's just one of hundreds of scenarios that come up. So when you have a team that has that level of open communication, and it's great collaboration, I think the project speaks for itself. I'm not going to tell you we got 100% of every detail correct, but we did try our very best to make sure that during the course of the construction process, we covered everything that at the very beginning as much as we could. Something that could be a potential problem down the line, we try to think ahead and make sure that it's properly coordinated. So Gavin is that person that we go to make sure that if something hasn't been discussed, we share it with him, and vice versa, make sure that he understands that, hey, we're thinking about this, and he would always call us also about certain things. So wonderful collaboration with him and the rest of the team, including the Marino Construction, the contractor. So
I think
That's
probably
great.
it's important to mention Steve and the
Yeah.
help.
yeah,
So I'm hearing that there's something about a beer line. What's
Yeah.
that?
okay. So the beer line is basically the beer harness. You got to bring, we have 16 taps of beer at the bar. So you have to have 16 kegs. And there's a beer line that runs into every single dispenser or the beer tap. And we have to make sure that we carry that harness all the way through. And it's a harness that has to maintain a certain temperature, because you can't let it get warm if it's traveling 100 feet. It's got almost has a glycol line that runs through it and everything. So that took some coordination. And Ricardo mentioned Stephen Geth, who was another major
Key.
integral part of this process, that also is another conductor. He kind of conducted all of us, not just, Gavin was more of the architectural and structural and mechanical, and obviously we're aesthetics and designs and finishes, colors, textures, lighting, fabrics, all that stuff that we all look at when you come into a space. But Steve is kind of the guy that's holding everything together and pushing everyone along. When there's a little bit of a snag here, he's the one that kind of would come through to make sure that whatever's tangled up, he unravels it, make sure that everything is flowing. Or if there's a leak in the dam, he was making sure that he was, patching it up. He was that type of guy during this project, and also just an amazing person to work with and part of the team.
I'm starting to understand why the rooftop now is maybe the most challenging part of the design.
Oh yeah,
100%. Yes.
yeah.
And it's also really interesting to hear about how this process all happens. For the everyday person like me, we walk in and we go, it's beautiful.
Oh,
It's beautiful, right? But to understand all of the very specific decisions and work that went behind it is really interesting.
Yes.
well, that's also the other thing with the hands-on comment that you made earlier, because we can put it on paper, we can specify, we can make the notes, all the drawings, but you have to be here with the tradespeople, and you have to make sure that you orchestrate that on site, because although everything may be on the drawing, they might not read all of it or might not understand it, and it's all communication. You got to talk to the person that's doing the work directly. So we're very much hands-on with touching every tradesperson to make sure we explain to them, hey, this is what the end product's going to look like. This is, the bar face, for example. That's a bar face that has a steel element, a beautiful green three-dimensional tile. There's woodwork involved that separates tile patterns. We were there to make sure that every section of the tile will end in a full tile, and we left the cuts at the ends. So it's just, there's just so many details. We can go on and get lost in the details, but important key thing is to have boots on the ground, be hands-on, and just treat people well with open communication, and share with them what your vision is, and explain to them, empower them by explaining to them, hey, thank you so much for doing this. It's not fair to you. You're just being asked to do something, but this is what this is supposed to look like, and this is what needs to take place, and this is what we want. And everyone, just when you empower them, and we did that with electricians, with the plumbers, with the tiles people, with everyone, and we're here.
Sounds like you had a great team.
Great team.
That's fantastic. You talked about boots on the ground and doing a lot locally to understand local elements. What about, were there any local pieces that were sourced, to create a particular kind of design here?
A lot of accessories with Spencer Raymond, who is in charge of really co-creating the restaurants with us.
Mm-hmm.
We get in the car, drive around, go to every antique store or thrift store that we will see, and try to source all the different elements you see. We like to mix new pieces with vintage or old antique pieces, so it has more character.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I think we probably went to 10 different antique stores trying to find the ginger jars that are in Tigress. So yeah, a lot of just last minute search.
What
So
about
it's so funny you say that because you open this up by saying the yin and yang. When Ricardo was with Spencer Raymond going to the different antique stores and thrift shops, I was here with Stephen Geth and all the other guys looking at the big things that needed to be accomplished. So Ricardo's like, well, we need to find the. My head wasn't finding the little touches and these little elements that really are going to make the difference, like the little cherry on the cake, for example, to make a difference at the end. So he was the one that went to the thrift stores and found a bunch of antique keys, which was a concept that we wanted to do.
It had to be
Introduce
the
at
right size
Mm.
key. So we will talk about like AC mechanical issues that he's worrying about, and I'm like, that's not the right size for a key.
Yeah.
So it's always
So
that
he
back
found
and forth.
and he found them because we wanted to replicate the old in the restaurant. This is at the Tigris restaurant. We wanted to recreate, create a concept that we thought about early on to hang antique keys on the walls. So people would be in the Cantonese steakhouse and they would escape into the Cantonese steakhouse or the experience of being a kind of like an Asian restaurant. But we wanted that hotel element to be there. So we hung a bunch of keys to replicate the old hotel concept where you'd walk in and look behind the reception desk, the hanging of the antique, the room keys that would be hanging there for the guests to use.
I love that. Nice research. Nice work. What about, is there local artisans or something with Labrica?
So Labrica is our furniture company. We do have a factory in Guatemala where we manufacture high-end solid wood furniture. We were, lucky enough to be able to furnish most of the rooms here with our pieces. So you look at the pieces in the rooms, they're made out of solid Santa Maria wood. It's not plywood with a veneer. It's like solid wood, which is not common for a hospitality project. There's a lot of custom pieces. The desk chair. It's a unique design that we created just for the hotel. Lounge chairs. There's some pieces from our collection. The flamingo chair you mentioned is part of our Piedras Negras collection, which is very elegant and more serious. But in this case, we created a custom fabric with flamingos with a vintage feel so that you will have that nostalgic element into the lobby.
I love it.
So Labrica is our second company because obviously we started with interior design first, but it was really a company that was born out of necessity for our projects back then. Because I would say probably 10 years ago we started designing hotels and all that. So we had an opportunity with Ricardo's family for them to open up a shop, and then over the years it's been growing and growing and growing. And going back to what Ricardo mentioned earlier, Steve. He's the one that really asked us, are you guys ready to furnish this hotel with Labrica? And my first response, out of just being very nervous to say yes, said, I don't know. And Steve really pushed us. He said, come on, you guys can do this. So we bit the bullet and we said, let's make it happen. And the rooms, the wardrobes, the vanities, vanity countertops, nightstands, headboards, coffee tables, the dressers, desks, all that came from the factory.
Beautiful.
So
I haven't been in a room yet, so I'll have to go check that out.
No.
Yeah.
Sounds gorgeous. Are there any design elements or pieces that you might be particularly proud of that could potentially be overlooked by someone who's visiting here or staying?
Yeah, probably part of the pieces that are part of our collection, like the side table in the lobby, the flamingo chair, which are very
the flamingo chairs are very personal and very intricate because most people don't realize that those chairs were, the base of the chair is a hardwood construction and the entire upper section of the chair is welded tubular steel to make that happen. So it'll look like a simple chair to someone, but us being so involved with every detail, every process, we understand what was involved to construct that chair. That's something that it can be easily overlooked. That
think
particular piece.
I love the chairs. I took a picture of them and I was like, how can I get these chairs? Sounds like I can't, but they're absolutely gorgeous. Isn't there something outside with some old, is it potentially like a World War II something or
the
other?
sofa.
The
Oh
sofa?
yeah, it's a sofa by a designer called Stephen Ken. I think it's the Inheritance Collection, and yeah, it's interesting. The fabric that is used for the cushions, I think he ran into by accident to this warehouse in California that was full of
It's like army surplus.
military tents or canvas for tents from the war, and he purchased the whole warehouse, and that's what he uses for that collection.
I bet you most people wouldn't know that. When
They
did
wouldn't
it.
know that. And we really wanted every piece that's selected has to have a story.
That's
you know.
great.
So that one definitely being the largest piece in the main lobby needed to be a conversation piece. So
Very neat. Speaking of the lobby, what do you hope when guests are walking in from start to finish? What do you hope that kinds of emotions are they feeling based off of the environment that y'all have created?
So I can answer that one. So funny enough, this is going to be kind of like a long-winded answer, but I'll explain to you why. So the original Key West hotel in Key West was already kind of schematically laid out, and they brought us in. This is when we first met Gavin and Tom Pope, and they got us involved. They wanted us to take a look at obviously the lot and the settings and the scenery and everything when we went there. And we took a look at the proposed design, and we made a slight change, which I think Matt and Mike were very happy about. We changed the angle of approach coming in onto the property, and we also got rid of the second level for the main lobby, with the idea that you would come into the lobby with lower ceilings and get the first hint of concrete and steel and petrified teak wood. And then you'd come in, and the minute you'd step in through a pair of a steel archway and steel columns, now you come into this amazing volume of a two-story lobby with, in this case of Key West, with the view of the marina right across. The original layout that they proposed, you were entering it in a kind of perpendicular way, but you weren't really experiencing that process of coming into a lower ceiling and then beautiful marina with the water across from you, and then this volume of ceiling. So we recreated that for here. So that was very important for us that we kept that experience from Key West to the Naples property.
Nice. When it comes to the design of both Perry hotels, do you think that the designs here are something that are more timeless, or do you see them as being designs that will fluctuate with the eras 10 years from now, decades from now? How did you go into it? What kind of design did you think about with that?
I think that not just for Perry, but for most of our projects, we just try to create a space that is not trendy, right? But that it has that timeless element to it. And I think 10 years from now, it might evolve, depending, it can change with, staff or especially, here, everybody's like a family. So there's like a frame that we have in the shelf by the reception desk where they switch the pictures all the time, depending on
they call it the employee of the month, or they'll do something really funny.
So I think it will evolve depending on who is, working at the hotel at that time. But the DNA and the main concept will remain, and I think it will not go out of style easily.
Definitely timeless. 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Well, they say in the hotel industry that it's always a 10-year turnaround. We would be very surprised if in 10 years, if anything needs to be changed, it's because something did not hold up well. Even the chairs that we're sitting on, these beautiful professor chairs with this distressed leather, the more you sit on them, the more you use them, the more they start to patina and age. And that's kind of like every piece of furniture, every design element that we propose, we keep that in mind. We don't want anything to be trendy at all.
Yeah.
And it's really timeless. It's very important for us, especially when the client's making a big financial investment like this. You don't ever want to do something that's too trendy.
Absolutely. Reflecting back in your careers, what would you give? I know a lot of students that are in design school right now. And so what kind of advice would you give young interior designers to keep that authenticity and soul that you guys have brought throughout your careers? What would you tell them?
Probably early on start learning a lot about business, not just the creative part. And for the creative part, I will say, always create a story behind it, because at the end it will give more meaning to your design, as opposed to just putting a bunch of pieces that look nice together.
So what I would say to the next generation is to make sure that don't lose that creative process, but also have a good level of understanding on how things come together, to make sure that when they're designing something, they have to not just make something look very nice, but they have to have a good understanding of how that design may be accomplished. So, but that's what I would tell them the most. Don't limit your creativity, but have a good understanding on, go out to the cabinet shop, go up to the metal guy, go meet the upholsterers, have a good understanding how things are constructed. It's very, very important.
I love that. Both two great pieces of advice. Looking forward into the future, are there any projects that you both are looking forward to, perhaps as much as you have with the Perry Hotel?
Yeah, luckily, all of our projects always bring up a new challenge, and they're all different and very exciting. We're currently starting to work on restaurants in Delray Beach, local brand from South Florida that is expanding, but also creating a whole new concept with them, which is very exciting. That eventually we'll start putting out there on social media. Continuing growing with Spencer more coffee shops.
Yeah. We did a couple of projects with Spencer and this group in Michigan. And one of the concepts is Social Misfits in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And off of that brand, there's a spin-off that we designed for Spencer called Misfit Society Coffee Club in Ann Arbor. And it's done very well. They've opened a second location there. And in 2026, we're looking forward to opening up Tempe, Arizona, and St. Louis to continue to grow the brand. So it's really exciting for us to still work with Spencer and the guys to help them develop and grow that brand. So we're really excited about that.
That sounds great. The coffee is fantastic, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both, Cesar and Ricardo, for sharing your journey with us today. It's been amazing to hear about all of these details. I'm so impressed, and I really hope that people will come out to see and now have a better appreciation of how it all came to be. So thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure to meet you both. And for those listening today, I'm Amanda. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.